All right. Well, it seems there was a doctor, a nurse, and a top executive of a major health organization have all died and are in line together at the pearly gates. And St. Peter speaks with them and asks what good each has done in their life, and whatever their answer is will determine whether they're let in. So the doctor says, "The good I have done is that I've devoted my life to the sick and needy and have had a part in caring for and healing thousands of people in poor areas all over the world." And St. Peter said, "That's wonderful, doctor. Go ahead into heaven." And to the nurse he asks, "What about you?" And the nurse responds, "I've supported the healing of hundreds of patients and have done my work with love and compassion." And St. Peter said, "Wonderful. Please proceed in with the doctor." "And what about you?" he asked the executive. The top executive replies, "I was the president of a very large HMO and was responsible for the health care of millions of people all over the country." St. Peter paused and pondered for a few minutes and replied, "Oh, I see. Please go in, but you can only stay for one night." I'm sure none of us can relate to that. All right. Well, we're continuing our conversation about being in the flow of life, this beautiful classic book by renowned minister and author Eric Butterworth. And this week is our opportunity to talk about the healing stream. And many of you probably know about our co-founder Myrtle Fillmore's story, but I do want you to know that the very reason that we are sitting in this room right now is because Myrtle Fillmore had a healing. Healing is foundational for unity. And so for those of you that don't know the story, I want to just tell you briefly. Myrtle Fillmore was diagnosed in the late 1800s with tuberculosis, told she had 6 months to live. She had done everything she knew to do. And so she heard that a man named E.B. Weeks was coming to Kansas City, and he was renowned for being a metaphysician and healer. And so she went to this lecture, and what she heard there, one statement, changed her life. And that statement was, "I am a child of God, and I do not inherit sickness. I am a child of God, and I do not inherit sickness." And from that point forward, she went into meditation 2 hours every day for 2 years. She asked herself to please forgive her for the way she had sent not kind energy to them. She prayed, she uplifted, she affirmed, she denied the power of the diagnosis that she was given. And within 2 years, she was healed. And so word got out. And so people started writing her saying, "Myrtle, how did you do this?" And so she started writing letters, which led to the formation of what we now know as Silent Unity. 125 years of praying with people, holding knowing. And many of you might not know of Charles Fillmore's story of healing. See, Charles, her husband, was watching this go on. And Charles admitted, I was stuck in my intellect, and I knew this was really valuable, but I just couldn't wrap myself around it. Because, see, Charles, at the age of 10, had an ice skating accident where he broke his hip. And the most obvious disability that resulted from that broken hip was a very substantial limp. One leg was considerably shorter than the other, and he had to wear a steel extension on that leg. And so what he started doing is affirming just like Myrtle. And because he was a little bit stubborn, and he admitted it again, how the flow flowed to him was in his dreams. And so he started working with these principles of healing, working and allowing the flow of life to flow. And within several years, he was able to release that steel extension. His leg actually grew. And when he died, he had a very slight limp. At the age of 84, Charles Fillmore said, "I am paving the way for my perfect healing." And at the age of 94, he said, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth in a mighty faith to do what ought to be done by me." I'll have some of that at 94. Amen. So, there you go. Absolutely. So obviously, the Fillmores activated the healing flow. So what does ARSA do to activate this healing flow? Well, Jesus told a parable that I think fits really nicely here, and so did Eric Butterworth. This parable is from John chapter 21. So, Jesus' disciples were out fishing in the Sea of Galilee. They had been out there all night long and didn't catch a thing. Now, these disciples were fishermen. They knew how to cast their nets, they thought. So they came back into shore, and Jesus met them there. And the disciples shared with them their frustration. And Jesus said, "Go back out and cast your nets on the right side of the boat." They did as Jesus advised, and their net was filled to overflowing with fish. See, I think this is a great example of what we can do. See, fish represent divine ideas, infinite possibilities. And when we cast our thoughts on the right side of the flow, we align with the infinite possibilities of life, the infinite fulfillment of healing. See, folks, the foundation of all healing is our knowing of our wholeness. And from that, all things are possible. All right, so we've been talking about living life from the inside out and what that means. This infinite flow of life that we are, the fullness of life is right where you are. Did you know that the whole of God is at every point in space in the same time? The whole of God is at every point in space at the same time, and guess what? You're it. You're that point of space. So what we're talking about here is activating that infinite wholeness to express. And I don't know about you, but I don't always claim it, and I don't always express it. And so I started to look at some of the obstacles that get in our way from fully allowing this flow to flow and express its nature as wholeness. I remember when I was a little girl, before I left the house, if it was raining, my mother said, "Now you better cover up because you don't want to get wet, you're going to get sick. Don't go out in the cold because you're going to get a cold. And later, as an adult, go get that flu shot because if you don't get that flu shot, you're going to get the flu." All right? Then there are those lovely TV ads of all the pharmaceuticals that, I don't know about you, but I don't think they're advertising wellness. Seems to me they're advertising a lot of sickness because we got to take care of it with this. So we're bombarded with that. And then we go into the break room at work and we hear, "Oh my gosh, do you hear about that bug going around? You better be careful. Don't breathe on me. Don't sneeze on me." Eric Butterworth did a spiritual healing 4-week series in his center in New York City. And I listened to those tapes. They were tapes from the 1980s. And I listened to them. And what he calls what I just described is contagion. He said it's contagion, and it's worse than anybody ever sneezing on you. It's impact. So, because see, we lose sight, don't we? Our thoughts start to be about the appearance. And again, I'm going to go over what we mean by appearance. In our class on Wednesday nights, we're talking about the big R reality and the little R reality, aren't we, class? Okay, all right. All right, that's good. You're with me. All right. Okay, so the big R reality is the infinite flow of life, is the absolute truth that is unchanging. Just because it doesn't change doesn't mean it's static. It's very vibrant. It's vibrant life essence flowing, folks. That's the big R reality. Underneath, around, within, beyond any circumstance, any appearance of dis-ease, the flow is present, whether we call it forth and affirm it or not. The little R reality is that appearance. Are you with me? All right. That's that little R reality. I know in my life it is changing and it is ebbing and it is flowing. But the big R reality is always present. And so when we have an appearance of dis-ease in our life, the opportunity that we have in that moment is to see it right. And we've been talking about that. To see it right, to see it as an appearance, not the truth. Not the truth. That's not where we give our power. Eric Butterworth says if we find ourselves in a situation where we are experiencing dis-ease, our first step is not to focus on overcoming it. Our first step is to focus and align our thoughts with the flow of life. That's our first step, folks. That's it. And to affirm and know wholeness beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it can get a little tricky, can't it? Especially when there's someone in our life that we love, or it's ourselves that's going through what we might consider to be a crisis situation or a diagnosis. And I want to take this opportunity to directly talk about your minister, Reverend Jennifer Holder. We talked about this on Wednesday night. I know this community loves her dearly. And I can imagine that there has been some frustration at not knowing the whole story. Because see, sometimes in our humanness, we feel that the more we know, the more we can help, don't we? But often what happens is the more we know about the details, the more we get enrolled in the appearance instead of holding the truth of wholeness. That's just what we do sometimes in our humanness. And so the opportunity that we have as we walk this path with Reverend Jennifer is to hold the truth, to see it rightly, to hold the truth of her inherent wholeness, and to notice for ourselves where it stirs us. See, what we've been talking about on Wednesday night is that, folks, the appearance is never what it's about. Because remember, we're talking about a big R reality. That's really the truth. And when we see an appearance that is showing up that feels less than that, appears less than that absolute reality, that is not the truth. And what we get to pay attention to is what it is calling us to heal within ourselves. What is being triggered within us by Reverend Jennifer's illness? Maybe our own fears about mortality. Maybe our worry, maybe we feel powerless, we want to help. Maybe that's something that was part of our own experience of life. But that's the opportunity that we have. I was a prayer chaplain at Inova Alexandria Hospital for 6 years before I went to ministerial school. And what I noticed is that when families are going through an experience of where a loved one is making their transition, if there's drama, if there's upset, it's because the family members are working through their own incompletes with their family beloved member that is transitioning. It stirs that within them, see? And if they can work through that within themselves, they can be more present and available with their loved one that's transitioning. The opportunity that we have as a community is to release the need to gossip or speculate during this time with Reverend Jennifer. I know you love her. I know you want to be there with her. And the greatest gift that we can give her is to be in the flow of life in our knowing, and to hold her in our prayer time and send her so much love and so much knowing of her wholeness. We can do that, can't we? We can do that. It's what you are. This community is a beautiful, strong, heart-based community. And folks, there is nothing more powerful than love in expression. So you take a deep breath with me. And so this week, what I invite you to do is to still work with what we worked with in our meditation. What situation in your life is calling you to know and call forth the infinite flow of life? And as Eric Butterworth calls it, get plugged in. It's an opportunity for you to get still and get plugged in so that you can align those thoughts that seem to be the obstacles to aligning with the truth of what you are, see? And it takes us getting still to do it, folks. We got to get still. Get still and know. I am still and I know that I am the flow. I am still and I know that I am the flow. Picture yourself filled and surrounded with that flow. Send that flow out to the situation, to the person. See them completely infilled and surrounded. See it right now in your mind's eye to Reverend Jennifer. See her completely infilled and surrounded with the infinite flow of wholeness that she is. See, folks, when we call that flow forth and we allow it to flow, you can expect a blessing. Expect it. Look for it. It's there. So I just invite you to practice that this week. And also today after service, there will be a community update that will be an update about Reverend Jennifer with the board. So I just invite you to come. And as we listen to the board, I want you to know you have an amazing board here. A beautiful, heart-based, powerful in their knowing board. And so they're going to be with you and share some information with you. And we're going to send them light too, right? In this process. All right. So take another deep breath with me. And let's affirm together. I release any obstacles to claiming my inherent wholeness. I open the way to the eternal flow of life. And so it is.